Welcome, everybody, back to the Paradise Podcast Network. My name is Corey Paradise, and I will be one of your hosts for today as we take a drive down into the middle of nowhere and confront what can only be called purgatory as we face our demons and nightmares in today's episode of PPN at the Movies. Season 2, Episode 2, coming at you. Got my friends here, Alfredo Garibay and Scott Borgstrom. How you guys doing tonight?
Pretty good, you know. Saw this film a while ago. Wanted to share it with you guys, and now we watched it.
And now we're
And
here.
now we
And now
watched
here
it.
we are.
Now we're here. What do we do?
That's that's a perfect summation of this podcast. We watched the show and now we're here.
Yeah.
Well, what did you guys think of it? I guess before we do what you think of it, right off the bat, this is a little bit different than any movie we've covered so far. This is considered an anthology, a couple of vignettes or stories tied around a central theme or idea, and I think to that, this movie did a really cool job with that kind of genre and take. What did you guys think?
The ending definitely was like, what? To me, you know.
Like in a good way, like a
Yeah,
or,
where I
or
was
a
like,
big like
oh
what?
shit, because the whole time I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Because it's so like, it's almost like staring into a painting and expecting an explanation for everything in it, but the painter's dead. Like, nobody's gonna explain it to you, you know.
Yeah.
And the film just resumes. Like, it doesn't care to explain. It doesn't, like, it just presents itself, and what you see is what you get. But yeah, overall, I liked this movie. I want to share it with y'all.
What about you, Scott?
I mean, there are like a couple stories that really didn't click with me. Like in the beginning, it didn't really click with me with both Mitch and what was his name? It
Jack.
was Mitch and Jack. Yeah, Mitch and Jack. They didn't click with me in the beginning, but I really wanted to find out like what their story was. So I'm kind of glad it looped around towards them at the end.
Mm.
But I was telling Corey this, but like that scene at the hospital, it lost me. That scene at the hospital lost me. Like I can't do like the gory human stuff. But I enjoyed it for the most part, though. I didn't think it was that great.
I thought it was good. What part of it do you say lacked the most? Like, you obviously don't like the medical stuff, but other than that, that's kind of a biased hit. What kind of objectionary piece of this didn't you like as much?
Mhm. Well, I think the movies where it's like at its weakest is the scene with the what's his name, with the guy with the shotgun that comes into the bar and he's looking for his sister Jessie, I think, right? It
Oh, to like the
feels,
tattoo shop or something.
yeah. No, it was a bar, I think, right? It was a bar,
Oh, okay.
right? And the bartender had a tattoo and whatnot, but it just felt like out of place to me. It didn't really feel like it
So that
belonged
scene
there.
was definitely at a bar.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to shut a couple things off.
No,
That
you're good.
scene was definitely at a bar. That takes place. That's the third story in this anthology.
Mhm.
Hmm.
No, fourth. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
fourth
it's the fourth.
story,
Yeah, because you've got
because
the
it
scene at the hospital.
it comes in after the hospital. Um, Strangely enough, I found that story to be the most intriguing out of all of them. And when
Hmm.
we're talking about like the lore of Southbound, the lore of this highway, I feel like
Hmm.
that one was kind of the most revealing of what's going on and kind of what you know what this whole piece of place is. Kind, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Did any of you guys pick up on that? I mean, it was a weird
Yeah.
one.
So one of the things that stood out to me was, I think all the signs in the movie point like south. Like, I think that's where the movie got its name,
Hmm.
which also implies like hell. Yeah, which like you can kind of or
Yeah.
purgatory. I thought it was
Yeah.
hell since it loops. Purgatory is kind of like hell's like you're in it. Like you're gonna
There's
relive
a
this every
there's
day.
a interesting little like piece of detail. I don't know if you guys caught it. Um they're in the first story when Mitch and Jack pull up to Roy's cafe for the first time and they get out and they go in and they check in. You know, this is actually kind of a verbatim of where the beginning of the story begins. I mean, that's how it all begins. Is you're just kind of plopped into this world with
Mhm.
these characters already mid trauma, going through stuff, bloodied and everything, and then you're just expected to kind of pick up the pieces, and they already see the reapers that are floating around, and you're already kind of like, yeah, what the fuck.
Yeah.
But they get to Roy's and they enter in, and the cashier's there. But playing on one of the televisions is an old movie. Did you catch that?
I remember
I don't
seeing a
know
couple
what
old movies sprinkled out throughout the whole movie, right? And it
Yeah,
almost feels deliberate,
yeah.
right?
So that one in the beginning is called Carnival of Souls, and it was like released in 1962 or something, and it's
Mhm.
about a woman who supposedly has a car accident, and then she actually comes out of it alive, and then and not hurt at all, and then goes through this whole kind of mind bending thing. I tried to
Hmm.
watch it today, but there were ads on this streaming service, and I said, "Fuck you, ads! You're not winning." But it's kind of symbolic. I think that that movie is supposed to depict this kind of hellish like
Yeah.
purgatory, and I think that it's better to call it a purgatory, honestly,
Hmm.
because of the medical story,
Mhm.
because of the doctor's story, and I think we can maybe get there maybe as we cover the stories as it goes along. But that one kind of there's the outcome to that one tells you something about the way this whole place works, and then the fourth story really kind of elaborates on what exists here. Um, but the first one gets us in. You know, the two guys, Mitch and Jack, come rolling into an unmarked highway. That's kind of another thing I like is that there's no number or anything. It's just like you just blow past the sign. You can just easily do it, you know.
Hmm.
And the other thing I love, this is a trope that I love specifically to me. This is something I freaking love. Is I love radio. There's something about it that is like maybe this is a part of like being a 90s kid, you know, still like we I grew up with Pogs, you know,
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
that I love when radio is introduced to things because there's like a freedom. There's a sense of rebellion or mystique to radio. You don't know where it comes from. You don't know who's broadcasting. It could be anybody. It could be that dude in his van sitting on the peak. You know, who knows? Like it's kind of this fun aspect. I love that. So as they have this narrator on the radio kind of chiming
Mhm.
in and guiding the stories along. Oh, I just it like doesn't matter. It's already a point. Like we're going up. It has my interest before we get going. It doesn't even have to work that hard.
Mhm.
But so Roy, Mitch, they go to they go or not Roy, I'm sorry. Mitch and Jack go to Roy's and they have quite a bit of an experience there.
I'll say.
So they go they clean up. They encounter one of these reapers in the bathroom and it chokes him out. What are you doing, man? You know. And you see him in the mirror, and I didn't go through the film and really look and parse through it, but apparently you can see the reapers in every stage of this, you know, in every story they appear
Mhm.
somewhere. um so that gets him, and then outside Mitch sees one outside, so they quickly get in the truck and they drive off, and like a Pac-Man stage reverting itself, they just come back in on the other side of the road and right back into Roy's.
Yeah.
That's
And
a
can I say the delivery for this whole scene that is being described right now is just so funny. He comes in, he goes, "What the fuck?" Drives off, come back, same delivery, same exact delivery, just what the fuck, right?
We need a cut of this where he does that like 8 times.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool though
And it's just
because
like the Reaper in the back just does something different. Like on when he's like balancing his fucking arm or something on his hood, he's like, "Oh, oh, oh," like in the back, like just keeping it steady. He's like,
yeah,
"Oh,
like the next one, two
oh,
of them are playing
oh."
like ping pong on a table or something, right?
You start
But no, it's
changing their
cool the way they
clothes. Like,
it's cool the way they do the transition where they show the car driving off and then they slowly pan the camera with the focus on the with the I want to say the clerk, right?
yeah,
The
yeah,
gas attendant, yeah, and then it
the
pans back to the
cashier.
truck and then what the fuck, right? I think the movie has a lot of well done shots, but I this, dude, that scene is really funny to me. I don't know why.
There's something about the whole setting of this town that always does kind of. The movie doesn't scare me, but there are
Mhm.
ideas that fester and are kind of like, in a way, hit home. Like when I was in college and I was driving out between San Diego and Phoenix, you know, every couple months or so.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a 6 hour drive in the middle of the desert. And it's 3 hours to Yuma. Either way, it's 3 hours to Yuma. That's your checkpoint. But between Yuma and Phoenix, there's this town called Gia Ben. And it's just like this, man. It's this weird, like, there's like a UFO motel, like who knows how many people actually stay in this town. This is a town you drive through to get to Phoenix.
Hmm.
And there's just, I don't know. I've been on that road so much. I've had to take a piss and pull off and gone to a gas station that's like, a quarter mile off of the freeway and the only building for miles. And there's the the bathroom is just like a series of bricks, lined up with a hole in the ground. And it's like it's pretty sketch and you walk to your
Yeah,
car and you
no
book it out of
thanks,
there.
no
Yeah.
thanks.
Pretty.
Places like that, where your objective is to leave them as soon as you can.
Yeah. And I guess what I'm saying is like this is one of those places where it's not just a movie set for me. Like I can picture one of these places
Hmm.
to a T because I've been through them so many times.
Yeah, well, I mean, it really gets your imagination going too. Of like, oh, that could have happened to me at that time,
Oh yeah. Oh,
right?
dude, and you can't help but like when you're on those long drives in the middle of butt fuck nowhere that you think and you look at your phone, you got one ass bar, and you're
Hmm.
like, if this is not good, like this is not where you want to stop. This is like stories of stopping like this in the middle of nowhere, man. They get to you because you are at like the mercy of someone coming along, like the girls in the next story,
Hmm.
you know, and plus it's like I've been through that, and then there was a time up here in the Pacific Northwest where we drove through like essentially the equivalent to a desolate desert road, but in the mountains of trees, and it's like a completely different kind of scary. But driving, man, there's something about the drivingness to this whole aspect of it is just that one day you could wander into this plane and you don't even know it.
Hmm.
So let's jump a little head further. Let's jump ahead
Okay.
a little further. And Mitch and Jack break down. They driving on the road gets you nowhere, just gets you back to Roy's. All roads lead to Roy's apparently. So he turns off the road and heads off into the desert. And he stops for a second and they both get out of the car and they start arguing. And this is the first time that a Reaper now sits in view and we get to see it for, literally, actually what it is instead of this ominous figure out in the middle of nowhere.
Hmm.
And and what do those things look like? And one of you guys, can you guys describe that to everyone? Because they're a weird Lovecraftian creature.
No, Lovecraftian's definitely the right word. They're
Um, it
they're
it
like
kind of looks like a skelly tone, with some stripped angel wings, and somebody was like, "Oh, they made your eyeballs look mean. Let's just put a little hood on that, buddy."
But they but they had to keep all the guts.
Oh, of
Do they
course.
have guts?
Yeah, they got these like weird like viscera like Mortal Kombat guts
Yeah,
that come out the bottom of them.
it's like
You
the
Almost
know
like
top half
something?
of the
tentacles.
skeleton. Yeah.
Oh, you're right. And you know what else? They ain't got no legs.
Ain't got no legs.
They ain't
Yeah.
got no legs.
Well, they got wings too, which is pretty
Yeah,
creepy.
well, they got wing bones, but they ain't got no wings.
Well, we get to see one of these things in action here in this scene, and this is where he flies up and attacks Jack in the car, and he gets out of the car, and he asks, "What do you want from me?" You know, they try to figure out what are these things doing, chasing them. And you guys remember what Jack or what Mitch says to that? Kind of gives us a hint to what this world is.
No.
No.
He says they've come to collect because they are reapers. You know, we've fucked up.
Mm,
Yeah.
Like they've
Okay.
done something to deserve this fate.
Hmm.
That's kind of why they run, is because one of them says like, "I'm not going home. You think we're going home? We can't go home after what we did. We don't know what they did."
yeah,
So and then this
that's
is
right.
the Jack gets attacked, and the thing shoves its hand down his throat and like splits his mouth open like the Joker. And that was like when it happened, when that scene happened, it's like a whoa.
Oh, dude, it comes out of nowhere. Like this thing happens like super fast, right? Like it jars you a little bit, and then you're like, okay, well, he's dead now, you know. But like the speed of which this thing goes is insane. It's like almost the next frame, you know.
Yeah,
Um, but the visual effects on it are fucking fantastic,
Yeah,
though.
it was
Right?
like it was for sure like a whoa moment. Like
Yeah.
it's
was
like when
not
you
So, oh,
fight
you almost got me.
Wesker in
You
Resident
almost got
Evil
me.
5, but he's not like he's not hittable, so he just fucking, like in
Oh
a single
yeah, yeah.
oh
frame.
like a blur.
Yeah,
Well, what's weird is that Jack dies, but
Mhm.
Mitch doesn't. Perhaps
he's
this
just
is
kind of left to keep looking for his daughter endlessly.
well, yeah. They lead him to that motel room.
Hmm.
They beckon him over, and it's not just one; it's multiple Reapers now. It's three Reapers. They
Dang,
beckon him
I don't
over
think
to
his
the
throat's big enough for two.
damn what they they motion him over to the motel room, and he enters in, and he enters into. It's weird. He enters into a motel room with gunshot bullets and
Yeah,
blood all over the wall.
it's like a
And
David Finch story that like has a bunch of little details that are never explained.
yeah,
Mhm.
because he goes into there,
I
and
love
that's just
David
like a
Lynch.
motel room. And then he the door closes behind him, and it startles him, and so he goes back to check on the door that just shut, and he opens that, and instead of the outside that he just came from, it's the inside of this house, like some house. And then he walks through that, and then when his back's turned, like some cheeky game developer using your camera against you, it like renders in a new setting behind him to
Mhm.
fit the rest of the house. So that motel room he initially goes into is not a part of the house. It's weird. Everything gets changed, and he gets completely teleported.
Hmm.
Well, my thing is, and I was thinking about this as the movie ended. Maybe the house he's in at the beginning is the house where, and to skip ahead, it's the house at the end of the movie, right? That kind of explains where they are.
I don't know. It might be,
Yeah, because I mean that's
but
that's what I got, but I could be entirely wrong. Truth be
well,
told.
there's something that we never. There's a questions that we never get answered, and one of them is what's up with the girl that he chases here. So when he goes into this house, he gets teleported to this random house. He hears a voice of a girl, and this harkens back because this is something we didn't mention, but in the very first scene that we have of Mitch and Jack riding in on this freeway or on this highway, I should say.
Hmm.
Um, Mitch is looking at a picture of a young girl. And so now at this house that he's mysteriously found himself in, he hears this call of this girl, and he sees, and it's the girl from the photo. So it's ostensibly like his daughter or
Mhm.
connected to her in some way. And as we will learn, no one is it called Southbound? No one is in Southbound like without a reason. So there's something tied to this girl, and the girl comes up later on in the last story where everything kind of
Mhm.
overarcs and comes together. But we never figure out what happened to the girl, why the girl is so important. We don't know. That's never answered.
Mhm.
But he sees this girl in this house and he chases after her, and he chases through, and it just seems like she's always one step out of reach. Always just one step. Around every corner he's running, he gets exhausted, and then he starts to get delusional and confused, and the voice starts coming from all directions, and then the camera slowly kind of tracks itself out of the room, and fades through the door, and just for a split moment, just for a split second, you can see one of the creatures standing in the room. um Here.
Mhm. The little girl is given a name. Her name's Catherine, and
Yes.
Isn't
yeah,
it his daughter?
yeah,
Right.
it's his daughter.
But we never know quite
Uh,
what happened to her.
Yeah, no,
As we'll
we're
learn,
just
like, if the last story, that family had something to do. The dad had something to do with her. We just don't know what.
hmm.
But yeah, in this picture, it might be a little hard to see. Let me zoom in. You can see,
oh,
the
you can definitely see it, but at first glance, it's almost like a palm tree, which is what I thought, or maybe like a decorative tree in the room.
and
You
when it
know?
happens so fast, it's like less than a second because the camera tracks backwards and fades through a wall, and then you're back outside of the motel.
Mhm.
And this is one of the best. This is what I like about this film. Film has great transitions between stories. That's obvious. It's obvious chapter. Changes. It's a definite story transition,
Mhm.
but it's so well melded into the next story that you could miss it if you weren't paying attention. Especially like between this next story and the one that follows it.
Mhm.
So as the camera tracks out of the room, we follow a maid who you know puts a "Do Not Disturb" sign over that motel room's door that the man's trapped behind, and she continues down the motel's walkway past another door, and the camera stays locked on this door because it opens up, and we're introduced to the three characters of our next story: Sadie, Ava, and Sutter. Three girls that
As Kim.
who?
Kim,
Are you sure?
Was it Kim?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kim was the blonde haired girl. That's right.
I looked all this up earlier.
Because Sadie's the quote unquote main one of the three, right? Kim is the one that
Yeah,
really
Kim's
liked
the
alcohol, warm beer, right?
yeah, Kim is the blonde one with the red hat.
Yeah, the beanie, if you would, and then
Oh, I was looking at the mother later or daughter later. I forget. Okay,
Hmm.
so Kim, Ava, and Sadie. Um, these three girls form a band of which we get no name.
They're
Unfortunate.
called hold on. They are called the White Tights.
I don't know where that came in. You're reading a Wikipedia at this point.
Yeah,
Um,
I am actually.
I
How'd you
got
know?
yeah, I got I need something.
I
I
went
need something else.
southbound to get it.
You will
well,
not believe the effort.
we just got to do it on camera. um, the the girls formed this band, and they stayed at Roy's over the night, and they for some reason they survived the night. Only
And
the
now,
two
can I just
boys.
say too, um, the most unrealistic thing about this isn't the demons or 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 the guy that turns into a demon. It's the fact that these three girls can actually afford that fucking Volkswagen bus,
It's pretty
van.
cherry.
That's um not possible these days. Those things are worth way too much. You don't tell me three girls in an indie band have one? Get the fuck out of here, dude.
Yeah, how
Well,
much are they making? What's their annual
That's
salary?
some fucking daddy money.
and
The devil
and
was nice to them for a little while, honestly.
they all decided to get rid of the spare tire to make room for whatever bullshit that they towed
Yeah, the drum
around in
kit.
there.
It was the drum
Oh,
kit, yeah.
All
so
the warm
an
beer.
all-girl band probably needed that space for their tampons.
Ooh. They had a fridge. You saw that, right? Like I
Well, you
wasn't they
can't
had a
keep tampons
fridge,
in a
I thought
fridge.
they had an icebox.
an ice box. Man, they should
Yeah.
have why didn't they stock up with ice from the motel? There's no reason they should have cold beer.
I don't know. I don't know, but they're drinking warm beer on
Well,
the side of the
we don't
road
know
with a
how
flat
long on
tire.
this southbound highway they have to travel.
Right, they may have like Jack and Mitch. They may have just instead of repeating Roy's, they could have just been repeating like Wile E. Coyote in the desert, just running through the same backdrop for miles and miles and miles. You never know.
Mhm.
Well, they get stranded. They blow a tire as they leave Roy's, and another photo shows up. This is kind of a they do it two times in a row, and they don't do it again. Um, but Sadie, which kind of becomes the main character for this story.
Fucking
Um,
vegetarians.
yeah, the moral of the story is become a vegetarian.
Fucking
Um,
And you'll
vegetarians.
live for a little longer.
Need
a
all this
little,
goddamn
a little.
attention.
A little longer.
Actually, maybe you don't want to be a vegetarian because then you'd be you meet that fate. Like maybe this is actually a commentary of how much the
Yeah, right. Let
director
this be a warning.
hates.
You don't eat meat? All right, meat's gonna eat you then.
Die now or die later. Pick one.
So these three girls, they get stranded. They blow a tire out in the middle of nowhere. This nightmare scenario I literally just talked about. Um, they have no cell phone signal and they don't know what's going on, and so they just decide to drink beers and wait for the next car. And it's however long that takes, because I think you kind of mentioned, Scott, that the acting is a little stiff in places, and it's not a very big cast
Mhm,
for how long the movie is. It's a pretty small cast. It's an indie film, you can tell.
mhm.
It's not going to be great everywhere, but this is I don't even remember how my train of thought between where I started and what I just said, and I was lost. That's how fast it goes. What that was bad. What just happened?
Doing okay, friend?
No, I'm not. Well, oh, what I was gonna say is like it doesn't seem like the sun transitions at all between the next two shots. Like they start drinking beer, and then it does a little fade into the next scene, and it's just later, and they
Yeah.
explain it like we haven't seen a car out here. This is the first car we've seen this whole time, and they're like, okay, and so
Yeah,
they
there's no lapse of time with this scene. It's
yeah.
just kind of like,
And don't they have cell phones too? Like,
well, they
Oh, they
called.
explained that it
Remember
didn't
they
work.
called. No,
no,
they
I know. I
called
meant
the
like to keep track of the time.
Oh,
well, no, I specifically remember was it Kim or one of them? One of them called like AAA, right? Specifically name drop like AAA, which is
oh,
weird to
and but
me.
they
This movie
couldn't find the
brought to you by Triple A.
position. They couldn't
Yeah,
find
and
it
it was
because
like,
there's no
"Oh, she sounds like she's
GPS.
at a bar."
Huh.
Stupid.
Oh, at a bar, like later on, the
Yeah.
bar in chapter
Oh
story
my
4.
god, dude! I didn't pass the
It all
bar.
comes
I couldn't
It
pass the
all
bar,
comes
so
back. Well,
I wasn't able to become a
What the fuck?
lawyer.
so these girls are waiting on the road, and finally this car comes along. Oh, sweet Jesus, the saints of the desert. Um, and it's this couple, and this is one of those scenes that you watch and you go, "This is off." There's
Mhm,
something weird about these people, but it's truly one of those ones where you cannot place it. It's just weird. They're just strange.
mhm.
It's not like, oh, you had a
It's the
deer
dude's
strapped to the
mustache.
front.
It's a dude's mustache that did it for me.
Is it?
It's just not a trustworthy mustache.
I mean, when they find the bear trap in the back of the car, it's kind of like, all right, yeah, that's the point where you literally roll out of the car. Like,
Yeah.
No, dude, they're for coyotes, bro. They're for the coyotes.
He
Nah,
did
that's
that.
true.
Remember that news broadcast? He did that. He did an impression of that news broadcast of the rabid dog guy. Remember
Oh yeah.
that? That's what he
Where he's like
did.
shaking his head, like going buck wild, dude.
And so jump the gun. They see these people come in. They
Mhm,
hail the car over and they ask for a ride, for some help, and they say, they kind of give some excuses and say, hey, why don't you come to our house and we'll contact some people and then we can get you all squared away. And at first they're reluctant, and then as they kind of drive off, and they're like, okay, and they take off, it's like reality sets in, and they go, okay, wait, we'll take your help. And so they hop in the car, and they have this weird scene where, yeah, they find this trap in the back seat, and there's just this kind of uneasiness to the car ride. It's hard to explain what it is because there is not any particular thing that gets said that you go like, all right, that's weird. Like, oh, red flag. There's just this general uneasiness to the whole thing.
Mhm.
mhm,
And they finally pull up to this house in the middle of the desert. And this is another one of those things where it's just, for me, it hits a weirdly close to home. Like, I had family that lived out in the middle of the desert, like Tucson and, areas of like legit boonies.
Mhm.
And I've been to their houses and it looks just like this place that they pull up to. Like, it's just in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by just low desert shrubs. And it's, yeah, you just feel isolated at night, dude. It gets so dark out there. It's crazy. Like, so they pull up to this house, and I'm kind of like, God damn, this place sucks. You don't want to be here. This sucks.
mhm.
And they go in, and do you guys, one of you guys, want to kind of take over some of the summary for a little bit?
Sure,
Once
yeah.
they get to the house, do you guys remember it?
Yeah. So, if not, I mean, I got my good old fucking Wikipedia here. Um, so they get to the house and they're at the house, and Mustache Man lets them into the house. And then the lady mentions something about their dead friend Alex, but who's the main character again? Sadie?
Yeah,
She's like
Sadie.
the only one who seems to care, and everyone else is like, so they're possessed by the Southbound place. Like they're just not they're just not human anymore. Whatever it is that they are. Um, they have dinner, right, with a different family that brings their sons.
Because
I
that
believe they were
family
the
had the tire.
McKinseys. The
Yeah.
McKinseys.
The what?
The McKinseys.
Oh no, the Kensingtons.
Kensingtons. That's what it was.
There it is. There it is. Um, okay, yeah, yeah. And they serve them burnt roast beef. But Sadie, the fucking
Is that what you thought it
evangelical,
was? Is that what that Wikipedia article says? It's burnt roast beef?
yeah, it says it's burnt roast beef.
Oh, I thought it was.
That's not what I thought.
No,
What
no,
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 did you
no.
think?
no.
We might need to go in and manually change this Wikipedia.
You're gonna make some fucking wiki contribution?
No,
Yeah,
we gotta
because
call up, let's see here, director, Roxanne Benjamin, Matt Bettolini,
well,
Oplin, and David
only one of
Bruckner. We
them
got
did
some
this
issues
story.
going on, okay?
Yeah, only one of them directed this
That's
part,
not roast
Scott.
beef. That's not
No,
roast
that
beef.
that
It's
was
burnt roast beef. Like
That
no,
ain't
that
burnt
fucking
was
roast beef.
torched,
no,
bro.
That
It's
ain't
that
torched.
was human. That was for sure human.
Well, you
There's
know what?
literally
Maybe it was coyote.
Nah, it was too big,
Mm,
too
mhm,
big.
mhm.
maybe it's a lot of coyote.
Unless it was like emulsified coyote, like it was several coyotes in
Well, I mean,
into
whatever it
one.
is, it's his own recipe.
But I swear
Own
that
recipe,
when
own
I was
family
watching
recipe.
it, I thought that that was for sure like human meat. Like that was supposed to be something like a that was like rotten meat in Minecraft. Like that
Oh,
was
yeah.
like
Yeah.
that's not what you. That's it. Because then they eat it and they're like, oh, it's actually pretty good. And then they throw up black, like whatever
But
that was later.
Sadie is vegan, and she has to mention that in the
Vegetarian,
conversation.
dude. She's not
Yeah.
Jesus. She's just like an apostle.
But she has to mention it because it is a little important that she doesn't throw up the black goo, the sludge.
Yeah, she looked like that kid in the class, that meme where the kid's like, and he's got like all the veins and shit, and she's like, "I need to tell them I'm vegetarian." When it's been 3 hours and you haven't mentioned that you're vegetarian.
Dude, can I just say if we ever went touring and
Uh-huh.
the two of you acted like the way, like, of course I'm Sadie in this story. Like, I'm
Of
the
course.
main character, just as you're
Mhm,
Sadie in your story. But if
mhm.
either of you act like Kim and Ava, like, I'm gonna punch you in the throat. There's just like I'm not I'm throwing you through that window when the twins see me outside and like are peeping
Yeah.
in on me. I'm throwing you through that window. I'm using the other one as a battering ram, like, because I'm just not dealing. Like they acted like asshole, man.
Oh,
Even
yeah.
even before they were like tainted by the meat and milk, like they were scuffed. They were shit friends.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
especially when she's like, "You friggin' Alex Daniels, your fault." That's
It's like,
kind
where
of an
the
asshole thing to say.
yeah, like, where the fuck
Yeah,
is this coming from?
but that was after she had the meat.
That's true.
After she ate the meat.
And then the
Or it's
family also doesn't
sleep.
give a shit. They're like, "Oh,
No, it's kind of a
well."
weird sequence of events. They're like they eat so they get to the house, they go into this guest room which has two twin beds, by the way.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
that's weird. That's weird. Like
It's
if I
very
went
weird.
into that room, I'd be like, this is like my grandma's house. And if it's not, this place is fucking weird.
Uh-huh.
And they go into there. Yeah, they have this little scene where remember the mom in that situation, the part of the not the mom, the couple, the woman who picks them up. I don't know why I call her mom, but she says to Sadie like, "It's a terrible thing what happened to Alex," like something
Mhm.
like that, and none of the other girls hear it. Only Sadie hears it, and she's like, "What did you say?" And then they're like, "She didn't say anything, Sadie. You're crazy." Like,
Yeah. Dude, gaslighting. Get
right?
new friends.
But then there was another really weird quote during the dinner when they're eating the meat is one of
Mhm.
the twins says, um, I thought there was supposed to be four of them, or
4.
I
Yeah.
thought there was four of them. And the what the Kensington mom like slams the table and she's like, "Boys!" Um and that's kind of it. Like they don't really go any further with that. So like
Yeah.
this it builds up this weird thing is like they know like people in Southbound, if you get stuck there, they somehow just have this knowledge of you. They know your life. They know what's going
Mhm.
on. Like there's a reason they're there. And I guess there's kind of that instance where when I think it's Kim and Sadie are talking and Kim's like, you caused Alex to die. It kind of reveals a little bit of the background is like that Sadie went off with this older man, to sleep with him and left Kim and left Alex by herself and that somehow
Mhm.
led to her death. And like
Now, the comment of "I hope the dick was good enough," or whatever she said, right? Or was worth it, right? I'm like, "That's a low blow, dude. That's a low blow, dude." There are a lot of low blows in this movie. Speaking of another one, I don't know if you guys piece this or just, like, immediately, like, recognize this, but the twins struck me as odd, and it just hit me till now. I posted a picture of them.
Mhm.
They look like Kenny.
oh my god.
That's rude.
You're-
I mean, can you see it though, right?
Maybe if I squint really hard and don't have my contacts in.
It's the
I mean,
jawline.
Corey sees it, right?
It's the jawline.
Yeah, it's the jawline and the nose.
Um, so it's just this weird, funky dinner this whole time. Um, and the girls eat the dinner. Later on, they start throwing up. There's this kind of spook scene where
Mhm. In
Ava's
the
in the
bathroom.
bathroom, yeah, and she's standing there. And again, almost verbatim to the story before it, She's looking in the mirror, she's looking in the bag, and then this thing in the background. It wasn't in the mirror for the scare, but it's still behind her in the bathroom. Is a it, I guess it was just a person. It wasn't a reaper, but
Mm.
there's a scare in the window. Uh, and then
Yeah, it's
they
like
start,
some fucking
yeah.
shit crawling
But it
around.
was definitely a person. But they were like doing weird contorting things, like they were, like I would do if I was standing outside of your frosted window trying to scare you at night.
No thanks.
um, they start throwing up because they ate the meat. So Sadie doesn't start throwing up. She starts panicking. She runs into the other room and they're like watching some, hillbilly football or something. I don't know what they're doing. They're just sitting around like talking. Like I guess you do in the 50s when you don't have electronics. Um, and they're like, "Oh, they need medicine." And he pops on up and pours them some glasses of milk. And then we do like a hard
Spent
cut.
milk.
We hard cut back into the bedroom, and they're wearing different clothes, and they're like drinking another glass of milk of
In
medicine.
sync with each other.
Yeah. Yeah, and then
That's the
like
most evil part.
that's kind of those scenes though where you go like, all right, we need to do what's creepy. And they're like, if they do all this and then they mirror each other. Yeah, that's weird. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and they're dressed the same. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
yeah.
fucking weird, dude. Yeah, yeah, yeah. um and so it's kind of like after this, it's just a lot of build up. There's a lot of suspense. Sadie sees the twins outside of her window kind of leering in, but not up on the window peeping in. They're like standing 40 yards out, just looking in the general direction.
Where's the last one of you? There's supposed to be four of you.
But that freaks her out, and she flips all the blinds, and she grabs a knife that she
That
found
she found
earlier
earlier.
that
Yeah.
was in one of the cupboards. That's one of those weird, like, all right, well, like that's there for a reason. That's if you that was a real life, like, like pre-boss room. You know what I mean? Like the real life,
Oh
like here's all
yeah,
the health
yeah.
packs, here's all the ammo, get ready for the fight.
There's a save point in the corner.
Yeah, because she grabs that knife. She
Mhm.
has kind of this weird nightmare that she bolts up from where Alex is standing in the middle of the road, and she quickly comes up on top of her like it's a weird nightmare thing. She wakes up, friends are gone. She looks out the window and she sees them walking off with the rest of the family into the darkness where the twins were once before. And so she gets up and heroically chases after them with her little knife. And she sneaks up into the brush and she looks out and like a poor man's "Oh brother, where art thou?" She looks down on a scene of not the KKK, but of like it's satanic, right? Like
Yeah, some like
that's
weird
kind of
like cult
maybe not
action
satanic, maybe the
activity.
like um
Their
esoteric.
annual HOA meeting.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's
The
yeah, yeah,
rally.
the rally. Um but there's this weird like esoteric ritual going on where they all like draw blood from their hand, and they're converting Sadie's friends into I think demons is what
Mhm.
we're going to find out. That's what I think. That's what I took away from everything. But they put these weird like things on their head. They like trace these symbols on their head, and it
Mhm.
fades
They look
into
like
their
Ash
skin.
Ketchum's logo on his hat in
It
season one of
does.
Pokemon. It's like the A, but not really an A. It's like a triangle, but it's not a complete triangle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
Uh,
like, you will catch them all. We will catch them all.
You'll live forever until you do. We'll live forever.
And I want the shiny living dex too.
Now start with
Bitch!
that, girl.
They like
what?
snap out of it. Bitch!
They this symbol fades into their foreheads, and they become demons now. And Sadie is scared. She's in the brush. She takes a step back, and oh, foreshadowing, you don't show a gun unless you're gonna shoot it. There's a bear trap in the ground, and she steps in that, and everybody is like, huh? and snaps their head over and looks at them, but only the two girls, only her friends run after her.
Yeah.
Um,
She failed the quick time event, so
Yeah.
and it was dark. There was no camera. There was very little light. But boy, I would give anything to see Sadie's technique for using that knife to open a bear trap. But movie magic. She gets out of it, and she's running
Well,
away from.
not before she fucking punts her friends in the face with her bear trap foot.
She also slashes one of them with the knife.
There you go. That's the
uh,
girl.
and there's a chase ensues, and she runs away. And there's another jump scare using Alex, an aberration of Alex, and Sadie runs into the desert for her life, and she's running and running and running until she finally sees a light and a road comes up. And this is where we get our transition from our second story into our third story, a very, very brutal tale.
yeah, I gotta
Um,
say it immediately like kicks off, right? With
oh yeah,
Yeah.
Sadie getting hit
Also,
by a car.
right before Sadie gets whacked by the car, you can see the you like that? You like how I said
oh
whack?
really?
Yeah.
You can see one of the demons in the background.
See, I was
Or
looking for
Reapers,
it in
sorry.
that scene, but I just couldn't see them. I
Yeah.
like I couldn't. I didn't see it, so
Here,
I
I'll
wasn't sure
screen
if it
cap
was
it for
there.
you, fam.
See, you know what's funny? Sadie survived the boss fight, but then she dies in the after.
Yeah,
She lost
so
to a henchman.
that's why
Yeah.
we said maybe the moral of the story is to eat the meat,
Yeah.
like
Maybe eat the meat.
vegetarians.
Maybe eat the. I
Get-
mean, you live forever. It's nothing that bad, right?
well,
Century what?
Sadie's fate is met in the beginnings of Lucas's tale. As Lucas is in his car driving down the freeway, he flips through his phone. He flips through several pictures that his wife has texted him of a
Yeah,
dress that she's wearing.
he's a horn dog.
And he looks down at his phone. He has his earbuds in. He cannot hear Sadie or see her
Oh no, he
standing
has
in
his
the
AirPods
road.
in. He can't hear. He doesn't know the
They're not even
time on the.
AirPods.
Oh yeah, that's true.
He's
They're
got his
like what
earbuds
you're
in.
wearing.
That's
And
true.
he plows through Sadie without stopping until
Whoa, dude,
after
is
he
she
hits
even
her.
of legal age?
I'm sure they bought a
Should
hotel.
be.
They bought a motel room.
Fair.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
Yeah, it's hard to see.
Yeah, very
Um,
hard to see.
so I mean, like plows through, and this is one of those most brutal. Like, I've seen a lot of movies. I've seen a lot of stuff. This is a pretty gnarly hit. Like, they obviously use a rag doll,
Hmm.
and it's pretty good. It does the job really well.
Oh,
Sells it.
absolutely.
It sells it for sure
Absolutely.
because she goes flying. I mean, and she hits the ground, and there's this moment of shock where Lucas doesn't know what happened. Still on the
Mhm.
phone with Claire, his wife, I think it was her name. And finally he hangs up the phone, and
She's looking mangled.
I don't know this one at verbatim, so I might kind of gloss over some stuff. So feel free to fill in the blanks. Um, but he gets out of the car and goes to check on Sadie, and she's fucked. Like
Oh yeah.
she,
Yeah.
there's
Well,
this is the
there's
scene.
legs bent in ways that shouldn't be bent.
Yeah, this is the scene from you guys seen House of Cards?
No.
Okay, in the very first episode, Frank Underwood comes out of a house. There's a dog that gets hit by a car, and it's like whimpering and crying. You don't see
Ooh.
it on screen. It's not on screen ever. But he walks over and he looks at the cameras like there are men who he says some monologue of like there are men who do what needs to be done, and those that get those that will do the things. And then he like kills the dog in the street, and this is kind of one of those moments though of like this.
Like they did that sheriff in Daughtry in the movie Django. Shot him like
Yes,
a
yeah,
dog in the street.
yeah, that's that's what needed to happen here, honestly. Like, dude, that it was so gnarly what happened to her, and it gets worse. It just the whole thing gets worse and worse.
Hmm.
um so he hits her, and obviously first thing to do, call 911, and he does. And there's
Mhm.
where the girls were met with, with the inability to find help, he actually gets through. And the police station says that there's not going to be an ambulance out there, or that they can't, or something like that, 30 minutes or something crazy. So they said, you need to move her yourself.
Which already lets you know they're
Yeah.
not talking to
Yeah,
someone
that was
with
like
a
that's the
license.
first red flag. If you don't hear if you don't pick up on that, then yeah, you he's already been sold on the whole
So
event.
so here's the thing, right? They're asking him to describe the damage he's done, right? And he's like, well, she's got a contusion right here. And he's like listing off all these medical terms. I'm like, what the fuck kind of job does he have?
Yeah,
Right?
so
If he knows this and then
you're right.
he doesn't know to pick up the body, right? To just leave that there. Otherwise he's gonna make it
Yeah,
worse
well,
as we see it.
and even when and later on, he knows how to do medical things. He can like he
Hmm.
has the ability to perform them. It's just like maybe he's a nurse or maybe he is a doctor. It's really hard to tell. But he picks this girl up and he moves her into the car and yeah, her legs are mangled in bending ways that they shouldn't, and she's royally screwed. She's breathing. Dude, the
Yeah.
breathing in this whole sequence is
Hmm.
like imagine the whole time you're driving, the whole time you're doing anything, and all you hear is I mean, that's essentially what it is, like mix
Hmm.
that in with a bit of gurgling of blood. Like it's nasty. It's not good. He
Yeah.
picks her up and puts her in his car and drives her into town. He drives, sees the lights off in the horizon. He says, "There's a town. I'll drive her there." And he does. And he gets into town. He's still on call with with medics, but nobody's in the town. He's driving through and there's nobody around. And he somehow finds the hospital in this deserted town. And he pulls up and he grabs the body out from the back of his car and he runs in through the doors and he's yelling for help, anybody's help. And he still has his headphones on, so he's still talking to the lady, and the entire hospital is empty.
Hmm.
It has been abandoned. There's nobody there. And so he frantically the voice on the other end, tells him what to do. And so he takes the girl into an operating room, and as he's walking into the operating room, the weight of finally carrying her in the way that she did snaps her knee in half
Yeah, her knee's like dangling.
and dangling, and she begins to lose a lot of blood, and he tosses her up onto one of the beds, and the dangly knee gets thrown up on there.
So like I know at the time I was like completely out of it, but now I'm just hearing like Cleveland going no 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 as he's like traveling to this like hospital room. That's all I can imagine right now. It's just
Dude,
going no.
that was like this movie has several of those just gnarly scenes that you're not expecting that
Yeah.
come out of nowhere. It's not like the rest of this movie is gory and gruesome, through and through.
Now would
Yeah.
you say it comes out of nowhere like the car that hit Sadie?
Very much, yes. That leg snapped like the car that hit her.
Yeah,
Like,
I had to skip that scene because it shows you the leg, right? It
yeah.
shows you the leg about to
Well,
come up, and you're just
it
like,
and it gets worse
right?
because
And,
then he
ugh,
goes like he asks what to do and they go, "Well, do you have something for a tourniquet?" He goes, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." He pulls off his belt and he
uh-huh.
ties it around her knee. And he pulls it tight and you can hear the bones squish and like crack
Ugh.
as the leg gets compressed. Dude, it's nasty. It's a
It's
hard one, man.
really, really well done,
And
right?
it's up there in a way that's like, Saw you watch for this. It's kind of
Hmm.
like it's going to get gory, it's going to get gruesome. So you just, it's like a dude puts his hand in and gets it sawed up his arm. Like that's what he sticks it out and it's crazy. You expect that. This is in a way that's way more visceral. That's way more like it's not the gimmick isn't this gruesomeness. It's just you're
Yeah.
watching it unfold. It's
Hmm.
very very gnarly.
Hmm. And I think we were talking about this, Corey, of the 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 graphicness of this scene in specific kind of overshadows and is kind of what makes this movie hard to watch for me because there is something about like a reaper just sticking his like little demon
Yeah.
hand down Jack's neck, right? But there's something different about watching someone struggle to get this lady onto
Well,
a
that's
surgical
definitely
You're
table on
not
like
her
you're not
leg.
into the body horror.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
when
I
we're
can't, I can't. Not when it's
yeah.
like two people, like I'm fine with like graphic stuff so long as it's like all like Resident Evil, oh, these dogs are coming in, I'm gonna like 360 flip and shoot my guns, right? But
Oh,
if it's like,
you're talking about as long as it's not people like humans.
yeah,
So like
like a
zombies are cool
real
because they're not people
scenario.
anymore.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, but you
They're
definitely have that bias though in horror. Like
absolutely.
if I was going to try and scare you,
Hmm.
I know that I would just do I'd lead you into something medical.
Oh,
And it
absolutely.
would your knees would buckle. Like you
Yeah, you
just
you take me into like a hospital room, and I'm like, fucking, I'm out, I'm
dude,
out,
when
I quit.
there was I was in Hollywood for the filming of of a movie, and
uh
they were filming some hospital scenes, and they were doing it in an LA abandoned hospital that like is decommissioned and used for movies.
hmm
But it's a hospital, it's still an old hospital. So like where whatever area is not being used is all dark. And so even during the day there are areas that are just pitch black, the middle of the hospital. And I can
Ooh.
remember the first floor wasn't being used. So it was lit up enough for you to walk the hallway to get to the elevator to go up to the floor that we were using.
Mhm.
And so like you would walk along the hallway, dude, two turns down, just if you just walked along the path and just broke the hallway that was lit, two
Mhm.
turns and you were in the middle of darkness in an abandoned hospital. And it was like, it may haunted or not, it's still creepy.
Yeah, no,
There's
yeah,
you're
there's
just
things
like,
that are just like
"Fucking."
unsettling
yeah,
for sure.
there's just an instinctual creep factor about the whole thing.
I think it's all the movies we watch and all the fucking, like, the BioShocks, the, "Ooh,
Yeah.
what's behind here? Hoo-hoo."
It's always the
Yeah, I can't do it.
what's around the
Can't do it,
corner
man.
and what your
Can't do it.
imagination puts.
Just around the river bend.
So
I
back to
can't do it,
Lucas.
but
He
uh-huh.
tosses Sadie back up on this table. He puts a tourniquet around her, like squeezes it shut after her knee is literally flopping around. And if any right minded, insane person would go, she's dead. Like there's no saving her. But
Mhm.
it's part of that moment, part of the franticness. And also now apparently a surgeon has been listening on the line the whole time and wants Lucas to save her. And so there he walks him through like certain things. Oh, she's not breathing, so he needs to put a tube down her throat. So he tells him to stick his hands into her throat. So he does and opens the pathway. And then
Mhm.
to take this tube and stick the tube down her throat into her airway so she can breathe. And so he does. But then during that, it gets stuck, and he tells him, "You're both killing her, and it's what's keeping her alive." It's like, what the fuck? And so he sticks it in further. And then he's like, "You need to compress the lungs." And so then he takes a scalpel, he makes an incision along the ribs, and then he sticks his hand inside her chest, and then physically squeezes the final life out of her lungs. And it's like the whole time he just got played, and then the voices on the other end of the line start to laugh at him.
Mhm.
And so he calls his wife after all this. He hangs up and calls his wife, and it's the voices still. Like he doesn't get through to his wife. It's just the voices that have been talking to him this whole time. But then this is the weird like twist, right? Is he tries to leave through the entrance that he came in, and it's
Yeah,
locked.
but
Like
it's locked.
legit locked. Like there's a
There's like a
chain on the
lock and
outside,
chain.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
And they tell him finally like something of like he's there for a little bit longer, but then they call him and tell him like to go into the locker room, and he does. And inside the locker room, there's a pair of clothes, a change of clothes. And he puts them on, and there's keys, and he goes outside, and there's his car, or
A
another
new car, like
copy,
so that
yeah.
nobody knows what happened.
And
Mhm.
he gets and they assure him that no one would know, and he drives off. And this is one of those cool transitions to the next story. He drives off, hanging up or having talked to this lady, and he hangs up on her, and the car drives out of the scene, and then the camera kind of pans down to a payphone where the lady hangs up the phone that was just talking to him. And it's like I love the transitions.
Mhm.
But
Now I find the whole scene, funny because it's just like after all this gruesome moment, he just sits there and he goes, "I just fucking killed someone," and they're like, "Yeah, you can leave." It's like, but again,
Yeah,
Well,
you're right, man.
what
You
are
eh,
didn't
your
deserve that.
yeah, you can leave.
well, what are your theories on that? Because I feel like I understand the meaning of that.
Mhm.
Because
Well,
the way I take it,
mhm,
or yeah, what do you? How do I feel like you just kind of voiced it, but
mhm. Well, to me, it feels like a continuation from the last story where Sadie escaped her, her quote unquote, like her pursuers, and they're not gonna let her go, right? And we know there's something up, there's something wrong with this town, with this whole like southbound highway freeway, right? So maybe it's not the villagers, maybe it's actually like whatever demon is possessing them, or whatever demon's possessing like the highway, the town, the freeway. But it wants to make sure she doesn't leave. I think that's why this story exists, because it
I
wants
don't
to make
think
sure it
uh,
finishes
I don't
the
think that
job.
she could
Right?
leave even if she wanted to though, because
Mhm,
remember they like drove to the same gas station like 3 times. Like,
mhm.
so
there's no leaving. I
so
don't think it's like
I'm
that. I
gonna
don't think
combine
she was
both of
ever.
your guys's.
Oh, okay,
See, because
okay.
I think what this is showing is the progression of how Southbound works. And Sadie, I feel like, was doomed. She was never going to escape. Partly of
Yeah,
what you
no.
tell her, like the reason they got there is because of what they did to Alex, right?
Mhm,
But Lucas I don't know if it's a plan or if it's by happenstance. You know, he literally hit Sadie by happenstance. Or like she gets away, but she can't escape, and thus they put Lucas on the path, or however it works in Southbound. But I don't feel like he's done something to deserve to be there.
It
And
could
when he
be
and when he
it
hits
could be
Haiti though,
something like
well, I think that his effort, like
mhm.
even though he didn't save her life, even though literally the instructions on how to save her life were completely wrong, it was the effort that he put in to save this random person's
Like with
life on the
with
road.
good intention.
He could have easily driven off in the
Yeah.
middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere, and been long gone. But he didn't. He stopped and he worked through it. He followed the instructions all the way to the end. He went through trauma, and this was like his test. Do you follow through all the way, or do you stop? And because he followed through, they said, all right, here's your pass. You will never forget this, but you will never speak of this. This is kind of like your own little trial that you went through and you came out the other side. Um and I feel like that's the case because in this next story that it leads into, it fills in the blanks of kind of where does this all exist? Like it's not on a GPS anywhere, so is it on Earth? Where is it? And I feel like this answers it because the fourth story, or second to last story of the night, is a story about this woman who was talking to Lucas during the last fight. She walks out of the payphone and into a bar where there's several other people sitting, and there's a bartender, and there's a very specific thing that he says is the conflict here in the bar between this lady and the bartender is that she didn't shut the door. She didn't shut the door
Also,
all the
real
way.
quick, I posted a picture. As she's walking in, you can see a poster for the band that for Sadie's
Oh,
band.
Oh
It's the
shit.
white tights.
so I feel like that's a perfect example. Is like they were destined to be there. You know, they were. It was supposed to be like they were bound. They were southbound.
I mean, it definitely feels that way. The movie gives off that vibe of like you're here for a reason, right? You don't know
Well,
what, and you don't know what for, but you feel
s-
like, you
in
know,
this next story, though, we find out a couple things. We find out reasons, and we find out how you can get there. Right? This conflict in the bar is that she hasn't shut the door. She needs to shut the door, and she gets into a fight, and they don't shut the door. And what happens? Who comes through that door because she didn't shut it?
And
Danny, a shotgun toting man on a mission to find a lost sister. And he enters into this bar And this is where we get a weird moment because this dude stands up from a seat and his hand appears to be like his giant claw. And he slashes at Danny, and Danny turns around and shoots the hand off of this dude
Mhm.
and then shoots, I think he shoots the guy. No, he doesn't shoot him in the head. He says, "I'm not sure if I can kill you, but I sure know that or I sure do know that I can that it hurts," or something like that.
Yeah.
So what the way I interpreted all of this is that they're demons. Like Southbound is inhabited by demons, and that the people in this bar are part of the demons that live in Southbound, and they're its residents. And you can only get there. Maybe it is a physical place. I don't really know if it's physical or not,
Mhm.
but the way you get there is through these weird mystical means, through doors that don't exist. There's because then we see later in this scene is the bartender has this tattoo of like a cross and eyes and weird symbols on his hand, and he holds it over his eye later on, and you can see through his perspective like a hidden door in a wall in one of the establishments in Southbound. And they go through that door and they enter into like this weird tattoo parlor. And this whole time, and I'm very much summarizing this story,
Mhm.
but Danny is searching for his sister, and this is where the barkeeper takes him. And inside, Danny finds his sister doing traditional tattooing practices on one of the demons, and putting in like this weird tattoo, uh, like patterns like the dude has on his hand, like the bartender has on his hand. And
Mm.
she's, tapping away on this dude's back,
Mhm.
doing old school methods. And she looks at Danny like, "What are you doing here? Like this isn't a place for you. This isn't meant for you." And in short, Danny can't be convinced to leave, and so he ends up blowing the head off one of the demons and getting in the car with his sister and driving off into the desert night. And it's weird. It's like in the beginning she says, "This isn't meant for you. You need to leave." And then once they start driving into the desert, she's like, "You can't stop now, Danny. You have to keep going. You can't stop
Mm.
now." But he does. He stops in the middle of the desert, and she has this confession. Do you guys remember the confession?
She killed her parents.
Yep.
Yeah, and he tried to tell her, like, explain it, like, it wasn't your fault. You didn't mean to do it. And she looks at him and says, "No, Danny, I wanted to kill them. Like I did it on purpose." I feel like this is saying like she's in hell. Like she's a part of the demons that
Yeah.
exist, and Danny's not supposed to be there because he's not a demon, She says that Southbound sought her out, like found her. So I feel like it's just another piece of the puzzle is that this place
Mhm.
is a place of demons.
So to confirm, Corey, because you are actually correct. I did look up on IMDb, right? And I looked under trivia
Uh-huh.
just to see. One of the trivia facts is the reason why Al makes a big deal of Sandy not closing the door. Is given when Al takes Danny to see his sister Jessie. It's a hidden door, the same
Yeah.
one that leads to the hidden room where Jessie is. Danny's able to find the bar because it
Yeah,
wasn't
she leaves it
latched.
open.
Yeah, yeah.
See, so it's this. I really love this, like how they build out the lore of Southbound. How it's kind of like each
Mhm,
story has this a reasoning as to why, but they don't necessarily like explicitly tell you. You kind of,
mhm,
I guess in this case, you have to. It's the door, but it's not like they go like, "Lady, Danny did this because it's your fault. You left the door open."
mhm.
You know.
Yeah.
They reach the end of this weird whole event because at the end of this, he drives into the desert. Sister tells him not to stop. He does stop. She tells him that he wanted to kill her parents, their parents.
Well, I think it was that he went off road. He went off the freeway. He did a no-no,
But
which
she says you can't stop. That's the point. Is once he's in that drive, she's like, "You can't stop now, Danny. You got to keep going."
Hmm.
Because when he does stop, though, these like a bunch of naked white dudes, and I don't say that like if I took my shirt off and grabbed somebody, I mean, like, dudes painted in like weird white paint
Mhm.
and naked, like, attack Danny and kill him or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
Presumably.
yeah, it's weird. Um, and I don't remember what the transition is into the last story, to be quite frank.
So she takes the car, Jessie takes the car, and I believe she goes to like the bathroom or like some diner or something, and she meets our next family, the
Oh,
daughter, I believe, right? I forget who her name is, but she meets the daughter of a
Gem. Her name
yeah,
was Gem.
and she looks at it and she goes, "What the fuck you looking at?" And then like leaves, and then the daughter goes to her family, and that starts her next story, right?
that's where it is. So, and our last story, as
Uh,
well as in a way our first story,
hmm
if you want to be weirdly cyclical with it. Um, a story of a very typical horror-esque trope, a setup. A family moves to town, that they've never been to before, and they know nobody and their house is in the middle of nowhere, and it's just weird and creepy vibes. Uh,
Mhm.
and this is one of those stories that it doesn't waste any time, which I thought was funny. Like, this family gets into town, they've never been there, and then they go to their house that they've never been to, and they're moving in. It's the first night there, and it's like immediately 20 minutes later. There's this, like, they have the weird wrappings on the walls, and
hmm
the knocks on the front doors. And this is another, man. This is like one of those just instinctually scary things, you know? It doesn't have to be done well. It just being done at all can get your mind racing. Of like, we've all had those moments of being home alone and
Mhm.
hearing a noise and not being able to place its origin, and it's just weird, and you get those weird vibes.
hmm
I've had days where, like, my brother doesn't tell me he went out or something, and I'm by myself and I hear a noise. I'm like, what the fuck? I'll grab my bat, like, ready to go.
hmm
So, like, this stuff, it's weird. It's just, like, just instinctually weird feelings. And so this family is there, and they're hearing knocks on the doors, and then they look and there's nobody there. Um, and finally they see somebody outside when one of the knocks come on one of the back doors or front door, I forget. And
hmm
they see one of the assailants, and it's this dude wearing a mask. I couldn't actually tell if it was a mask at first. I thought it was just
Yeah,
this
yeah. It's
weirdly
hard.
faced thing.
It's hard until they get closer, right?
I almost
It's like,
feel like if it wasn't a mask, if it was that's just what their face looked like, it would
mhm.
be even weirder.
Yeah.
But
They
that's
take off their masks and it's the Reapers.
oh, ooh, sheesh. Or the Reaper flaps, like, and it's
Oh,
and
dude.
it's the mask.
Uh.
uh but I feel like if you ever want to make anything weirder or scary, just add a plastic presidential mask, and it's just it's
Yeah,
automatically scarier for some reason.
yeah.
Um but so these assailants have stalked this family down, and now are harassing them and attacking them, and they finally do break into the house, and it's kind of hard to explain. I don't remember, like, play by play, but they tie up the wife and the father, and the daughter kind of escapes and attacks one of the dudes. But then they're like, said, you can run away, but she doesn't run away. She comes back. She tries to be like the
The
hero,
hero. Yeah.
and then she dies. She gets stabbed in the gut. But there's this moment. So they're tied up. The father and the wife are tied up, and the dudes with the mask take their mask off, and it even before that, I guess, is still in mask. The guy shows the picture of the girl from the very beginning of the film, and so now the whole cycle has been completed. You know who these people are, but to sell the point, they raise their masks, and um, you see Mitch from the beginning of the film, and then Jack raises his mask too, and the wife and the wife and husband know what this is about. Because the wife looks at the husband and is like, knows what's going on. Like, I thought that you, like, before she can finish a sentence, they shove like a thing down her throat.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Um, but like they know about the dog, they know about the girl. There's something that they know about this girl. And then
Yeah,
the husband
the daughter.
convinces them to let the daughter escape, and he says thank you, and then they stab him to death.
Mhm.
Um, and then she tries to come back and be a hero, and she gets stabbed. And then that's where it's like this cyclical event where now Mitch and Jack and their friend, who was also with
And
them,
third guy who was there
yeah,
all along. And
um,
third guy.
but the Jack and Mitch witness the wife and husband, like the Reapers come out of their bodies.
Hmm.
And then they're rumbling on the ground and the hole opens up outside in like the driveway, and they hop in the pickup truck and they pull out just in time.
Mhm.
And then it's like all connected. They drive down the road and it fades into the morning, and we have
And then they
the
had a
beginning of the
long
film.
night.
So I feel like when you talk about it on paper, it's very cool. It's very interesting. You
Mhm.
know, it all connects very well.
Mhm.
But I think you're right. There's aspects of it that are just a little too crude, like a little too indie, and just lack that extra grade of production that would put it, at a really really interesting level.
Mhm.
I'm not sure how many, if it's won any awards or anything. You guys were looking at the IMDb's, so maybe you guys
Um,
could tell me.
yeah,
I
let me
think
check
its
real quick.
greatest accolade was that Jordan Peele said it was a hidden gem.
That's funny.
Mm.
Well, what do you guys think? You guys have anything you want to talk about? Anything about the film?
So originally when I was talking to you, Corey, I said I didn't like the movie, right? I did not like the movie. I didn't,
Yeah,
right? There were a lot of things that struck me as odd. Like the acting is a little weird, and now that you said it was an indie film, I can kind of see that it's stiff because in some scenes it is stiff, but some people or some actors end up making it work, like in the now third scene, with the gruesome body and whatnot, right? Um, but after us talking about it, I do have a little more appreciation for the film, for how much they snuck in, because it did zoom past my head, you know. I guess zoom past my head, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with talking about it now in a better light. And it has made me appreciate the film a little more. Am I gonna watch it again? No, but
dude,
um,
we're
it
gonna have
it
so much
is.
to talk about next week. If this movie went
Yeah.
over your head, ooh, next week's movies is
Well, I mean, it at first, like the first two didn't scare me. The first two were like, okay, well, I mean, it's interesting. There's a lot of interesting concepts, right?
yeah,
It's a little wordy, and like it wants to just gargle out information with the second story, right? Of like, oh, your friend, your friend, your friend, your friend. And clearly, Sadie's the only one that cares about this to a huge degree because she feels like it's her fault. Um, but overall, it is a hidden gem, I would say. If you're looking for something different, I would say this is a good movie about it, to go watch, right? But
yeah.
in
The movie
terms
moves
of
fast too.
awards,
Like that's
yeah.
like because it's broken up in this anthology kind of setting. Three
Mhm.
or five different stories. It moves very quickly. I reached the fifth story, and I was like, all right, there's got to be like maybe another 40 minutes, half hour. Nope, we're in the last 20 minutes. Like, this is it, last story.
Mhm.
So I like that about it, though, is that you spend an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, and it doesn't feel like you sat down for a long time. One story might be better than another, but because it's almost like radio. You don't know what you're gonna get, but you're in here for the long haul. You just deal with it and you pay attention, and then you get your payoff with a new story after.
Mhm. Okay. So the only thing I've seen here is the film was included on numerous best horror films of 2016 lists, including
Mhm.
those by Rolling Stone and BuzzFeed and The Thrillist. But that's really it.
Hmm.
It released to a. I feel bad. This movie didn't make that.
Well, it's because it's probably a festival film
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
didn't get picked up or didn't do something or played on. It's on Hulu. So
Mhm.
you don't know how much it got paid for the Hulu or how much it gets paid for the Hulu streams
Of
and stuff
course.
like that. That's
Of course.
kind of where like box office stuff is weird to read nowadays because like how do you quantify the box office for like Shang-Chi that
Hmm.
released on Disney Plus and in theaters, It had like a 50 million box office this year, but it would have had way, way, way more. But it's streamed and you can't really quantify that very
Hmm.
well.
Of course. Of course.
What do you think, Alfie? Is there anything else you wanted to talk about this film? Anything we didn't cover?
I like films like this that kind of loop around like this. Like there was one I think I made you watch it a few years ago. It's called Triangle. I don't know if you remember it.
I don't remember. No.
Um, well, we can watch it some other time, but it pretty much like it reminded me a lot of that movie. So I like trippy themes like that. I like shit where there's obviously something paranormal or not even just paranormal or like occulty or like it doesn't have to do with demons or anything, but like when there's something off or when there's something that has yet to be explained. Um,
Yeah.
I find that really intriguing. Like um, Annihilation is another movie like that where you're just kind of left to your own devices to figure out what like you're kind of left to fill in blanks on your own.
Hmm.
And like the movie will provide you with a little bit of context every now and then, but it's quite scarce.
Mhm.
Um I like movies like that that don't feel the need to explain to you or at least don't outright tell you. They show, they don't tell, and that's a cool tactic to me.
Yeah, these the directors and the creative minds behind this movie, if I remember right, they worked previously on a series called VHS.
Oh, we've seen
Um
that.
yeah. But so this movie came out and then when I was doing like research, reading articles and stuff at the time of this movie, they were already promoting a new VHS movie that was coming out, like VHS 4, and that was supposedly had interspliced time stories similar to how Southbound is. So
Hmm.
maybe Southbound was kind of like the initial like proof of concept before they apply it to VHS 4. So maybe that's something we should check out sometime.
I'd be down. I'd be
All
down.
Yeah, I
right.
concur. I very much concur. Um, I did want to ask overall, how did we feel about the movie outside of me? Because I do like this movie. Would I skip the third act, which is called The Accident? Yeah, I would skip The Accident, but that's just my personal bias.
I thought it was good. I thought you know there are some obvious downfalls, but you can get over them if we're thinking
Mhm.
if I'm speaking objectively. I give this movie like a 7 out of 10, maybe a 6.5. It's interesting, but it's not it's not on par with like The Shining. It's not.
Of
It's a
course.
different movie than that. You can tell that it was set under different parameters, but in terms of like if I was sitting around in a college dorm and I needed something to watch with a bunch of guys, I'd throw this on because it's like you get something different every couple minutes. It's constantly changing, makes you think. Good jump scares, good gore. Maybe 6.5 is wrong. Maybe like a 7 out of 10 is just a good scoring.
Mhm.
7 out of 10. That's what I'll give it. 7 out of 10.
I'll
Which
give
one?
it. I'll give it five. I'll give it five Reaper entrails out of seven.
Should we
Perfect
change
score.
it? Should we change to 1 out of 5?
Should we?
Should we change to like 1 to 5? Because I feel like we never use 1 to 5.
Well, I mean, I gave it a 5 out of 7, so make of that what you will.
Okay, so 3 out of 5. Got it.
Because if I was gonna go through
I think
one
your
out of
math's
5, I
supposed
give
to
it a
be better
3 out
than
of
that.
5. I give it a 3 out of 5 on a 1 through 5. You know, it's not spectacular, like a 5 out of 5.
Yeah.
I wouldn't watch it again like a 4 out of 5, but it's definitely not a 2 out of 5. It went
Yeah.
for a concept and it pulled it off rather well.
I mean, I would definitely have to agree with that. It's a movie that knows what it wants to present. Is it presented like perfectly? Not entirely. There are some nitty gritty that you can.
Oh, Scott doesn't like
disagree with.
dislocated kneecaps.
I'm
Everybody-
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
All right, so next week we're watching.
Damn, Scott. I think in a way that's quite ableist of you.
We're
In what
watching
way?
Medical ER Diaries next week for this show.
Next week we're watching Human Surgeries.
Yeah.
Just to fuck with Scott.
No, next week we are taking another step into the Kubrickian universe. This time with kind of not the first film. He had a couple before that were really big, but I feel like 2001 is such a landmark film when it comes to the landscape of cinema that it's largely probably one of his most recognizable films. 2001: A Space Odyssey. That's what we're going to be covering
Concept
next
that
week.
we could fake the moon landing.
Yeah. So, that's going to be an adventure. It's going to be in a trek that I'm sure will have a lot to talk about by the end of it. So,
yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
might need to be a double feature podcast or something.
yeah, grab some popcorn, grab 14
I'll
gallons
definitely
of
make
water.
sure that
Grab your
I'm
popcorn,
much more energetic
get
than
some
I am now
For
for that one. I'll have notes that aren't on Wikipedia.
Because you got to do some research beforehand. I almost don't want you to do any research, Scott. I just want you to watch the film and then come in on next Wednesday and ask all your questions, because you will have
Okay.
questions.
Okay.
So,
I
yeah.
am gonna write it down just to.
So let me
see where we
pop
go
it
from there.
over.
An epic drama.
So next week
Ooh, I like that.
on the 10th, I don't know why it says 7th. Should be on the 10th we will be doing our very first, or we'll be doing 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Ooh.
Hope everybody is there to join us. Hope you can find the time to watch this, both the first half, the intermission, and the second half, and come in next Wednesday ready to talk about this film. I know I'll
That's
be.
not the book.
We are the Paradise Podcast Network, and we will see you all next week, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, man. You too.
Yeah. We film it on Wednesday, but it's always a weekend if you put your mind to it.
Yeah.
Every
It'll
day
be
is Friday.
tomorrow if you're really thinking about
Yeah,
it.
you're not trying hard enough if it's not the weekend.